in there, it might be a good idea, you guys, to kind of clean up some of this sludge on the outside, just to kind of keep a cleaner area. You just empty your sponge out with water and do that. I'm going to open it up. So my left hand is still going to be in the same spot, and it still has just as important a job. It needs to stay there and make sure the clay stays there. I'm going to use 2 fingers over top to open this up. Again, there's lots of different ways people do this too. This is just my way. So I'm going to make sure my hands are touching every spot they can. The more points of contact, the better control you have. And this you really need to be controlled on, because this is where you could spend a whole class centering it, finally get it, and then put it off center just by doing this. So you got to make sure your fingers are down right in the center, and you got to drill straight down. So I'm pushing straight down, and my hands are really tight against each other like this. I'm really squeezing my fingers into this part of my left hand. Okay, and I'm going to measure it. You need to make sure you have a bottom that's not too thick, not too thin. So what does that look like? Well, it's hard to know for sure, especially when you're just starting. So I'm going to take this needle tool, push this down until it hits that. Push my finger down till it's the clay and back that out. So just a 1/2 inch, maybe under. That's a good start. If it's really thick when you back that out of there, then you can always go a little deeper with it. But if it gets too thin, you're kind of out of luck. You almost need to start over, because getting clay to go back down into that bottom where you've removed it is a little tough. Okay, so I'm good with that. Now I've got my hands back in the same spot, and I'm going to open this up even further, which is doing like this. So I'm just being really tight still here, and I'm pulling back towards myself. And this is going to be the size of the base or the vessel that you want. So if you're making a mug, you'd open it up kind of smaller. If you want to make a big bowl or something, you open it up larger. That's up to you. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is compress it. You guys, the clay is made up of layers: clay, water, clay, water, clay, water. And so what you need to do with the sponge is not thin it out anymore. You're going to take a sponge, and you're going to lay that down in there, and just, kind of like you would squeegee your window off. I'm just going out with the sponge and back in. And here's what that looks like. I'm taking my sponge, and I'm starting in the middle on the inside of the vessel, and I'm just pushing this way and this way. Again, I'm not making the clay thinner. So guys, it was like, wait, because I'm kind of going wrong. Just kind of like that, back and forth. Just don't make it thinner. We're just kind of smushing it all together. Okay, now I'm going to pull up the walls. And much like when I was centering, it's going to look like I'm physically picking this clay up. I'm not. I'm pushing it together and pulling that up. So what that looks like on the inside there is my right hand is going to hold the sponge like this. So I'm completely shifting sides. I'm going to hold the sponge with my right hand, and my left hand is going to be on the inside now. My right hand's just cupped under just a little bit where my left fingertips are on the inside. Okay. So I'm going to just drizzle a little bit of water over the walls, not a ton, and I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. You always want to finish the pull. So you always start at the bottom, and you always come up to the top and up and off. You'll get better the more you practice, obviously, at knowing how much pressure to apply and when. The bottom is where the thickest part of the clay is, and that's what you're pulling up. And so I'm pinching down there. I'm pinching my fingers in together, and you can see that little bump there. That's extra clay, and that's what I'm kind of riding up and bringing up to the top of this vessel. The other thing that's going on here is centrifugal force. So the wheel's spinning around and around, and it wants the clay to go out like this. if you don't actively go against that, you're just going to end up with a big Chinese walk every time you throw. So you've got to use, when you're using your hands like this, also you're going to be actually coming in. So your right hand, your outside hand is doing all the work. Your left hand is just kind of a supporting actor. Okay. This one's the main event. That one's doing the work. Drizzle water anytime you feel your fingers start to stick. And you just keep pulling this up. You want to go slow on this, and where you've been aggressive before with centering and opening things up, this is where you want to be really soft. So you're pulling that up. Now that's just a cylinder, and I've made this look really easy, you guys. Please don't expect this out of yourself, not right now. But should you get here, or when you do, you want to give it some form, because this is just boring. That's just a cylinder. So giving it form is going to look like changing up your hands a little bit. So I'm still going to always start at the bottom, but I might not push here. And I might I might ride this wall up a little bit. And right about here, I'm going to use my left hand. I'm going to gently kind of scoop out really slow and soft. And I'm going to keep it in one spot for several rotations. Now up here, I'm going to bring it in and give it a neck. So I'm laying off my left hand and I'm letting my right hand push in. Another thing you can do is collar it. So make sure your hands are wet. You can kind of put your hands around it like this and very gently squeeze. That's another trick. You guys, that's what we're in here for this semester. We'll get the hang of stuff like this. This is just one big general overview. The rib tool is really nice to give yourself a flat wall and also kind of get some of that extra off the bottom. And let's say you have a kind of a wobble like that. That happens, you can use this rib tool. My hand looks like this on the inside. Use the rib tool and let that guide that out of there. Now, trimming the top. Sometimes the top gets really uneven, especially when you're pulling up the walls. And because I gave it that wobble, it was moving real funky. So I'm going to act like I need to trim this all off. This is all nasty. I got to get rid of it. What you do is you hang out over here with the needle tool. You put that left hand on the inside. And I'm going to kind of go 1, 2, 3 in my head and then commit to this. So I'm going to put my needle tool softly to my fingertip. You don't have to like stab yourself. And I'm going to go right here and go. You just kind of hold that there. Again, you guys, I made that look super simple. It's not, but it will be for you. The more ceramics classes you take, it's just how it happens. So you want to make sure the rim is nice and thin, and there's kind of your vessel. So say you have something like that, that happens for you. I am going to take the wire, wrap it around my fingers like it's dental floss, push that down flat on the back and make sure I pull it flat towards me. Some people, if they're not paying attention, pull up, and then that pulls out the bottom of it, right? So there's that. That's kind of what you do. Now, I'm going to show you what this looks like from the inside, though. And I need to do like that. Okay. So we've got a little extra right here. It's going to support, but all in all, this is even all the way around. This is where most of the clay likes to hide out, though, so you want to be on it with that spot. That's kind of the goal. And then the next day when you trim it, you trims that down a little bit. Yes?
But do you want that, like the fat part right there, to keep it like short on the top?
A little bit. Depends on what you're making. If you're making a bowl, yes. Heck yeah. But not much more than that. That's kind of pushing it a little even. I mean, and then when you trim the next day, you do trim that part a little bit and shape it a little bit better. Okay, so let's say you didn't make a something, which is, again, please expect that. Don't get disappointed when you don't. It is everybody goes through all of that. So that